What we do have evidence is that as a stress-based disease, it's the environment and the individual horse's interaction with the environment, 80% horse, 20% management, that is a really strong driver of disease. So we know that increasing the number of handlers and riders increases the risk of glandular disease. And that's really reflective of the behavioral interaction and the behavioral stresses associated with that handlers and riders and that individual horse. That's going to vary from horse to horse. A horse like George, who was an old schoolmaster, he was just not fussed by whoever rode him. He was just happy as long as he got fed at the start of the day and the end of the day and got a scratch in between. Other horses, that Molly, we've got a horse called Molly May, is a one-person horse. She will ride or die for my teenage daughter, but she does not like anyone else handling her, feeding her, or riding her. And so for her, it's going to be much more stressful to have a change in rider than it will be for George. But if we think about it too, discipline probably matters. So we think about dressage. Dressage is all about releasing to pressure to very fine signals. If you change the rider, you change those signals, it gets harder for the horse to know exactly what the rider wants. It gets harder for the horse to comply. Therefore, the response is more pressure, which is another way of applying more stress to the horse. So we have to think about it in those terms. We want to schedule rest days. When I say a rest day, a horse that's a day that's not physiologically stressful or behaviorally stressful. So if the horse is relaxed and likes hacking out at a walk, it can do that on a rest day. But at the moment we start trotting, the moment we start asking that horse to think or work mentally, that's no longer a rest day. We know that horses, show jumpers that exercise 6 or 7 days a week, were 3.5 times more likely to have glandular disease than horses that were exercising 5 times a week or less. And race horses that were exercising 5 to 7 days a week were 10 times more likely to have glandular disease than those exercising 4 or less, independent of other factors like the total amount of exercise. So we have to think of exercise as a physiological stressor for horses, and we have to allow rest days for that stress to reduce and that healing to reduce. Confounding stresses like pain, lameness, orthopedic disease, saddle fit issues are really important. We have evidence that says that horses with concurrent lameness or sore backs are less likely to respond to pharmacological therapy for glandular disease. So giving the drugs work less effectively if they have concurrent pain. So we can't just treat the stomach. We have to look at the whole picture of say, is there something else driving this disease? And orthopedic disease, saddle fit, and dental disease are 3 things that I will look at every single time now someone presents me a horse for gastroscopy. Because I can't fix the problem if I don't fix what's causing the problem, and because all 3 of those things mimic the same clinical signs of gastric disease, which are behavioral manifestations of pain, primarily for glandular disease. What else is important? I'm a huge believer that every horse needs a friend. I think that confining horses into isolation is one of the worst things that we have done to them in modern management, and it's one of the easiest things we can change. And so these are our horses. These are some off-the-track thoroughbreds that we do rehoming for. They had lived in the racing environment for years. We take them, we put them in a paddock with friends, and they will do this for hours and hours. Neck to neck is really important. Nose to nose is not enough. Nose to nose is not enough to give the full benefits. They need to go neck to neck. These 2 guys have got a little bit carried away and gone butt to butt, but you can see how relaxed and how much they're enjoying that. And they will do it for hours. You can see in the background, our competition horses have their blankets on, and that's because getting them ready for competition is really important.